유럽의 시각에서 트럼프 대통령이 미국과 필리핀 주석을 준 거에 대한 아주 복잡한 마음을 솔직하게 잘 말씀해 주신 걸 이해가 됩니다. 미국이 더 이상 특별한 동맹이 아니라 노멀 컨트리라고 하는데 여기에 대한 미국이 되게 반응이 어떨지 좀 궁금하다는 생각이 듭니다. 첫 번째 라운드 한 바퀴 돌았는데요. 그다음에 이제 다시 그 패트릭 토닌 석장님 그렇게 해서 다시 한 5분에서 7분 정도의 시간을 기용합니다. 오늘의 토론이 유익하고 생산적인 것이 되기 위해서 좀 더 논쟁적으로 선명하게 말씀해 주셔도 좋을 것 같습니다. 공통적으로 다시 드리고 싶은 질문은 하나는 지금 소위 기본의 질서, 자유주의 국제 질서, 혹은 미국 중심의 단독 체제 이렇게 다 쇠퇴하고 또 약화되고 있다는 생각을 어느 정도 하기를 하는데 우리 그럼 앞으로 어떤 세계에 살게 되는 것입니까? 흔히 얘기하듯이 세력권 정치냐 아니면 강대국 정치냐 우리가 살아야 되는 세계는 어떤 세계인지에 대해서 좀 더 선명하게 정의를 해주시면 좋을 것 같고요. 두 번째는 한국에 오셨으니, 기왕 한국에 오셨으니 이 연한 세계에서 한국이 어떤 방향으로 나가는 게 바람직할 것인지에 대해서 정말 진심 어린 솔직한 조언을 해주시면 좋겠다는 생각입니다. 이렇게 공통 질문을 드리고요. 아까도 이제 제가 말씀드리자마자 프로님 선생님께서는 북경제에 대해서 조금 더 이 한반도 비핵화 문제를 어떻게 풀어가는 게 좋을지 말씀해 주시면 좋을 것 같고 유태준 선생님은 한미일 군사협력의 북중로 대립구도를 만든다고 말씀하셨는데 이게 한미일 안보협력에 대해서 아시아판 소위 나토의 방향 이런 흐름에 대해서 중국은 어떻게 생각을 하고 있는지에 대해서 좀 더 지적하셨으면 좋겠고요. 이시오 주현 선생님은 한일 간 안보협력 이것이 미국에 대한 안보 의존도를 실제로 줄인 방향으로 나갈 수 있을 것인지에 대한 가능성을 좀 말씀해 주셨으면 좋겠고 비스콤 소장님은 얼마 후면은 앙카라에서 나토 정상회담이 열리게 됐는데 이번에 나토 플러스 IP4 국가들은 아마도 여러 가지 다 참석이 되지 않아 보이는데 앞으로 나토와 IP4 국가들의 협력 가능성 어떻게 보시는지 좀 말씀해 주시면 저희가 정식적으로 승부하게 되겠습니다. 그럼 프로님 직장부터 말씀해 주시죠.
President, thank you. Yes. Let me start with North Korea because I didn't get to that in my opening comments, and I know that's central to the discussions here. President Trump is willing without precondition to meet with Kim Jong-un. And this morning I woke up and I was alerted back in Washington that North Korea was sending out emails with my name. I must say they were very polite emails. So if Chairman Kim is listening to me, listen to Eugenia, listen to President Trump. What do you have to lose? Meet with President Trump, maybe on the margins of Shenzhen later this year. It can be a trip range from there to, since President Trump is so seldom in Asia. That would be a possibility. But the problem is this. Kim Jong-un has set a precondition. And so it's, as much as I agree with Mr. Chung that we should talk about a peace regime, and I think President Trump is willing to talk a peace regime, the precondition that Kim Jong-un has set makes it very difficult to get to that. Not impossible, but very difficult, because he says, first accept North Korea as a nuclear power. So if Chairman Kim is willing to finesse that language, the United States can finesse that language as well, and we can get to those talks and we can start talking about peace. But unless Kim gives us the green light, unless he's willing to actually lead, then it's impossible for South Korea and the United States to make that happen. So that's the North Korea issue. I do think that denuclearization, I need to add, is still not a secondary issue. So even though we have EMD and 3 phases and all these very good logical plans, that doesn't mean that North Korea's growth in nuclear weapons is not a problem. So this is where I would take a more historical approach to Minister Chung did when he laid out the beginning of the nuclear program in 1992. I go back to at least 1950. Yesterday was the beginning of the North Korean invasion of the South that started the war, that then invited the American air power in particular, and the threats of nuclear atomic use at the time, that led Kim Il-sung to fear regime survival, and therefore to say that nuclear weapons, in his mind, were going to be essential. It started then. We saw that by the fact that North Korea sent its best physicists to Russia, which is a part of their nuclear power center in Iran. And that's where they studied. And then they set up nuclear deals with China and Russia, Soviet Union in 1959, Yongbyon in 1962, a Soviet nuclear reactor in the mid-60s, and it's never stopped. There's been a continuum here. And Kim Jong-un is absolutely wedded to nuclear weapons, as we know. He is advancing the fissile material stockpile. That is a threat. And I've said it North Korea because I don't have enough time. On China, I think the opportunities here that the two leaders have set up on strategic stability, I don't call it a strategic détente, but I think a tactical détente is not a bad thing. Wang Yi actually, before the meeting, said, look, we're not going to change each other's mind, but if we can lower the temperature and have a better tone of working, that wouldn't be a bad thing. I think he's actually right. Maybe we can do more than that with 2 issues. One of them is artificial intelligence, and I think the 2 leaders have started to talk about opening up an opportunity because we could both be inadvertently threatened if we can't get a grip on the technology that's emerging with AI. Secondly is in dealing with nuclear arms. I know this is an old requirement, or an invitation basically to talks, 3-way talks, Russia, China, the United States, but we need to start dealing with this issue as well. And I think it's possible, and that's where strategic stability can come in. But what's not possible, as we see with China's actions this past week sanctioning the American companies that are trying to reduce America's total, almost near total reliance on reprocessed rare earths that China is not letting out of the country, shows that this is not going to lead toward closer coupling. It's going to lead toward more de-risking on both sides, both China and the United States. And it's very competitive. That rivalry, that's part of the rivalry. I see that as competition. I don't see it as competition necessarily. I certainly don't see it as conflict, and I don't think either leader wants to see that. Korea, Japan, the United States, our European partners, yes, our special partners in Europe, from my view, but I can't agree and disagree with Sven that it does obviously matter about who the leader is in the United States. Politics matter. I think I have great respect for the elderly, especially as I get older. But President Trump is 80 years old. He's term limited. He's not going to be the leader forever. And you can worry about our next election, fine. But from an American who's in the thick of thinking about, talking about the future, I listened to the 2 representatives from the United States today. These are people who can work together, who can be civilized, can deal with the world in a much better way. So I think I'm over time, President, and try to get everything. But I do think that the United States needs to adhere to refine, especially the 250th anniversary of the United States. We need to rediscover our own principles. We need to rediscover Lincoln. We need more unity. We need more wisdom. We're capable of that. We're capable of self-correction, and we need to find that. So I start at home with the United States to try to contribute to the kind of order that we want before we ask our allies for anything. But then looking to our allies, even looking to competitors who achieve so much, to try to figure out how to navigate this complex environment going forward. Thank you.